So today we are going to talk about The Black Tongue Thief. I just finished reading this book. It is by Christopher Buehlman. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but The Black Tongue Thief. Like I said, I just finished reading it, and boy, do I have some thoughts on it. If you are looking for the next epic fantasy tale with multiple POVs, universe at stake, complicated rule-based magic system, and just takes you on an emotional roller coaster, this ain't that book. And that's typically the kind of book I enjoy reading, but it's okay. Not every book has to be that. And this is definitely not that kind of book. This is almost more of a tribute to classic fantasy. There's definitely some things this book did really well. There's also some things I'd criticize about this book. I recently read Kings of the Wild, and these two books have a little bit in common in the way of tropes. So Kings of the Wild, full of tropes, a lot of classic fantasy references in there. Black Tongue Thief, same thing. Full of tropes, a lot of reference to classic fantasy. So if you are a big fan of the just classic fantasy adventure tale, this may be a good book for you. Now, what I'm talking about when I say full of tropes, I mean full of tropes. In this book, you are following a thief that has gotten into debt with the Takers Guild, which is where he learned all of his thieving skills from. And he teams up with a veteran knight that survived the Goblin Wars, and they go on a quest with a witch's apprentice to go rescue a queen from a kingdom that had been invaded by giants. I mean, you don't get much. I don't know what other fantasy tropes you could fit in there. That's most of them, it feels like. And so, while not cutting edge, there's not a whole lot new, it's comfortable. It's a very comfortable read. Some of the criticisms I would have to make on it, though, is with it being such a classic plot, you see a lot coming. It took me a while to put into words how the plot really made me feel on this, because something just wasn't working for me plot-wise. And I think I've settled on just it being one note. So at the beginning of the story, you're introduced to the main character and the setting, and it has a certain feel to it, a certain tone. And it's fine. I like that tone. I was hooked. But then through the rest of the story, it doesn't change at all. There's no excitement picking up. There's no depressing, sad moments. It pretty much holds that singular note throughout the book. While that may help it with the comfort fantasy feel to it, it doesn't do anything for me as far as being interesting. So thankfully, the main character is witty and fun enough that seeing the world through his eyes is entertaining enough to keep me reading the book. The plot really did nothing for me. They could have been going to the town fair to play some games and picking up some food on the way. To me, plot-wise, that would have been just as interesting. Like, it didn't do nothing for me. I didn't care about the queen. I didn't care about the kingdoms. It just the reason they were traveling through the world didn't really do anything for me. What did was, like I said, the character's wit and comedy from him. That was great. There's a few parts that actually made me laugh on it, so I enjoy that anytime I can get it. And two, the banter between the characters was pretty good. So anytime you have witty banter, sign me up. I'm in. Now, criticism on the characters, much like the plot, they were kind of one note. So the main character that we follow, the POV for the story, is the thief that's in debt to the Takers Guild. And while he does change a little bit through the story, he's pretty much the same character by the end of it as he is at the beginning. There's not much of an arc for him. You know, his view on the world doesn't change a whole lot. And he goes through the most change of any of our characters. You know, the veteran old knight is a veteran old knight in every sense of the word at the beginning and at the end of it. So, and you know, the witch apprentice, everything you think a witch apprentice would be. It's just, there's not a lot of depth to the characters throughout the story. But another area I think it really shined with this book is the setting. So the setting there's a lot of different kingdoms. There's a lot of history with the different goblin wars. There's some mystery as far as where the goblins come from. There's mountains and lands beyond the mountains we don't know much about. So there's a lot of history and lore to this setting, and I really dig that. And I hope in future books, because he does plan to write more books in this series, that he digs into that and really sinks his teeth into some of the lore and the history, and I hope the plot kind of thickens a little bit around that. So I think there's hope for this series going forward. While the first book is not terribly on the edge of your seat gripping, it is good, and I like the characters they introduced, and so hopefully with this setting they can really dig in and get some more interesting things happening in the future with this series. With that being said, if you like this book, if you've read it before, let me know down in the comments. Is there certain books like it that you've read that you would recommend? I'm a big fan of thieving books. I like a good heist. There wasn't too much thieving and heisting going on in this book. So if you have any other good recommendations for that, please let me know. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, take number 3, because my camera has been malfunctioning today. And the AC turned on. Let's see if we can pray for a miracle and have no other interruptions. Alright, we're going to make this the good one. Okay? Okay.